This morning. We are going to look at security matters across Sierra Leone. We'll be assessing the Makeni CCTV camera issue, the death of the Catholic priest in the Diocese of Kenema, Reverend Father Augustine Amadou, the increase in armed robbery cases across the provinces, and the fight against kush, among other things. To discuss all of these security issues, we've been joined this morning by Assistant Commissioner of Police and Head of Media, Brema Kamara, flanked by Abdul Karim Will, who is serving as Director of Communications Office of National Security. Good morning, gentlemen. It's a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Commissioner, you're a hard man to get these days on the media.
Huh?
You're a hard man to get these days on the media. Good morning.
Yeah, I've added something else to my cap, so I have to be doing this, I have to be doing that, and so sometimes it's difficult.
I understand.
But thank God I'm here.
Well, you can handle it. I mean, there have been a lot of security infractions across the country. A dead priest, places in the provinces that are being terrorized by armed robbers. How many of these guys have we arrested so far?
6. We have 6. One is a receiver. One who received property stolen from the home of the NASIT manager in Bo. In fact, he led us to the other people, so we were able to nab the other people. So we have 6 in our custody so far, and we have 2 on the run. Initially we put out a warrant of arrest, and for now we've escalated that one to wanted notice. So we did that one on Friday. So that's the current situation.
SP, should we be worried in any way? Because what sort of instruments are these guys using? Weapons generally? Are they using guns? And what types of guns? And where are they getting these guns from?
Well, what we laid hands on, we call it in our local parlance, chakabula, and was shotgun. And we had 2 of them. We laid hands on 2. We have them. These ones are locally made.
Yeah.
And then other outbreak implements, bayonet, crowbar, so we are working. That's our job. That's what we are paid for. It could be difficult, but we have to do it. And then we are making sure that wherever they are, if we continue to have the cooperation of the communities, they will get at them.
What do you think has fueled this outrage? I mean, Sierra Leone is not known for armed robbery in any way, it's quite sudden. Is it linked to the kush epidemic in any way?
No, to say Sierra Leone is not known, it could not be widespread. But armed robbery is one of the offenses we normally witness within Sierra Leone. But to say it could not be widespread.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to attribute it to kush or whatever, but that could be another limb of the investigation. Why is it that we are having, especially during the rainy season, because some offenses are seasonal offenses, like robbery most times during the rainy season, and we can understand the situation. When it rains, people sleep and they sleep well, and sometimes people now make use of that opportunity. But it's going to be another limb of our investigations, and what we require. We're going to be doing the safety and security aspect. We now look forward to CSOs who can come around to look into the other areas, and then we'll continue to collaborate for the continuous safety of our people.
Yes, you're fighting crime, but it seems crime is fighting back. No sooner these cameras were being installed in Makeni than they were stolen as well. How did this happen in the first place?
Well, one was stolen, and that is a fact. A fact is a fact. One was stolen, and we are now investigating. We want to know the circumstances, and we also want to know the motive, because when you are investigating, you try to know the nature of crime, trying to know the circumstances in which it was done, and then equally so you now have to try as best as possible to also determine the motive for that kind of activity. So we are looking into that one, and we've instructed the regional commander to ensure that we get back that CCTV camera, and whoever could have done that thing, we also get at that person.
Which area was this camera installed that was later now stolen? Which part of Makeni?
I don't think I have that. Oh, I know it was Makeni, but the specific location, I don't want to be on air and then provide an information that is not correct. But I cannot give the specific. But it was reported to us last week Wednesday, whilst we were on management meeting. The regional commander called to inform management that this had happened in Makeni. It was not specific at the time, so it was my responsibility to have gone further, but I didn't do it. So I cannot come here and try to paint things nicely. I cannot.
What's the purpose of the Sierra Leone police installing CCTV cameras?
Well, it's the electronic aspect of investigating crime, because they can capture images, and this is what we are expecting, that they must have captured images, and they will now have to go and check the images and see whoever could have done A, B, and C, where our physical presence is not felt. So that's the purpose. We fix them there, they capture images, and then they aid our investigations. And this is what we are expecting. If they are fixed for that purpose, we want to know whether they captured images before they were stolen. So we do all those types of analysis, and then we now come out with the report. But it was a sad one.
Are these cameras doing 24 hours recording?
Yes, supposedly, but I don't want to let out a very key information with regards to the cameras. You know, they are, of course, solar. We know solar, how they operate. If you have rain throughout the day, you don't expect them to be 100% effective. So, but those are information, don't put them out to the public, because people might want, it was raining the whole day yesterday, so there is a possibility that the batteries are not charged. Somebody will begin to think about that. So, but that's the situation, really. They are using solar.
Abdul, thanks again for joining us this morning. With the Sierra Leone police themselves, they have now become suspects in the investigation process. Not too long ago, we saw even the military issuing out a release cautioning people on the use of the military camouflage. And this information came just a few hours or day after it was circulating that some of the people who were arrested, some of them were alleged police officers who were also suspects in another armed robbery related matter. The police themselves are also now suspects in this.
Well, the investigations will prove that. There are allegations, and of course, as a sector, there is zero tolerance of indulgence in crime by any of our personnel. And I'm certain that whatever might have been the case, the investigations will have to prove that. On general security, on a regular basis, we conduct assessment of the country's security situation relating to the issue of armed robbery. If you track back a year or 2 years down the line, you look at the assessment that have been done before now, you'll see that the trend, the pattern is almost the same. Some crimes are committed during festive seasons. Others are committed during the rains. And what we are now doing is to study that pattern and see how we can up our antennas in terms of intelligence collection. I mean, in our societies today, in spite of the effort that you make, in spite of the structures that you put in place or the commitment, some other people just make every effort to, do all things. What is important is the ability, is the commitment of the structures that have been put in place to counter these kinds of people. That is the reason why the security sector, particularly police, should be commended. Unfortunately, somebody lost his life in Kenema on account of the activities of this miscreant. But no less a person than the Inspector General of Police himself almost shifted office to the Eastern region and promised this nation that the killing of the late Reverend Father Augustine Amadou was not going to be another statistics in the books of crime. Rather, the perpetrator was being sought after, and thankfully, less than a week after that deadly event, 6 people are now in police custody, and all of them are linked to these kinds of heinous activities, the ones that happened in Bo and then faded on to Kenema, resulting in the unfortunate death of a revered Catholic father. So we continue to call on members of the Sierra Leonean community that whilst we fight crime, whilst we do the hard lifting, we also expect them to continue to support us with information, because we thrive best when we have information, when we have intelligence. I mean, we can see that we cannot be everywhere all of the time. But these crimes or these criminals are in societies, they are in communities. If we do not protect them, if we do not give them covers, then they will not continue to thrive, unfortunately.
What's the chart showing in this specific crime of armed robbery? Is it steady, or are we on an upward or downward trend of it?
If you, like I stated, if you track back 1 year, 2 years down the line, because almost all of the seasons we do conduct threat assessment, particularly when it has to do with these kinds of offenses. Our current assessment shows that it's a kind of in a kind of a balance. What obtained last year is the same thing that we continue to have. Clearly and understandably so, it became alarming when we had the loss of life of a father, of a reverend father. And sometimes, in fact, we give description of activities of robbers, of thieves, label them as armed robbery when they actually do not fall within the threshold of armed robbery. And so when you now pair those in terms of the reports you receive, the intelligence that filter in, you will now begin to shift what is burglary, those things that are common thievery, and all of that kind of a thing. But no matter what it is, whether it is burglary, whether it is common thievery, housebreaking and larceny and all of that, these are not accepted in society.
Understanding that as it may, I'm still stuck on understanding the statistic we have for armed robbery, specifically armed robbery. Do we have more cases than before, or do we have less cases than before, or is it just showing the same number?
It's showing the same numbers, the same patterns.
Okay,
the same
and
numbers.
now you've been able to, the Sierra Leone police has in custody suspects who are now being investigated and are allegedly linked to both crimes. What was the progress made in the previous years in the investigations for armed robberies?
Okay. When police arrests people suspected of involvement in criminality, they do investigations and they will transfer on to the judiciary. The judiciary will now convict with support from the police and then proffer the charges or the kinds of punishment. Sometimes these people, based on the offenses that are before the courts, will be given some sentences and they will spend 2-3 years in jail. Maybe after they finish their jail terms, they will come back to society. It is expected that when they go to the correction center, they should come back as reformed people. But there have been evidences that in some cases they go, serve their jail terms, and then come back into society. And there are even indications, investigations are beginning to point out that some of these people were among those that broke out of jail in the November 27 coup d'etat.
So I ask these so we get clarity on what our situation really is. Because if we had reports of armed robbery in the past and they were investigated, people were arrested, tried, found guilty and jailed, you would wonder, how then are we still having armed robbery? Could it be that it's becoming lucrative? So we're having more and more people venturing to become armed robbers, or are they the same armed robbers recycling into the society? We really need to understand this.
So it's a combination of various factors. Sometimes you catch up with some people when they are involved in a particular crime. Sometimes they may go out of the radar. And it is near impossibility to arrest and capture all of the criminals at the same time and put them all in jail, and then you did a crime. I mean, all over the world, you will have criminalities. You will have people that are just engaged in these kinds of activities. So, whilst you might have arrested some, the ones that are remaining will continue to do their activities. And so, you will not have a situation where you have a clean slate, that there are no armed robbers in our society. That would not be even wise to think of. So yes, there could be new ones that might have been recruited into the deal. There could be the old ones that have not been caught up with the law. There could be others that have gone to jail, served their jail sentences, and then come back to society and begin to do the same. We call them recidivists. They go back onto the same crime. They revise their activities. They were criminals, caught up with the law, sent to jail, spend their jail terms, and then come back to society. It is expected that they should come as reformed people. I am aware that the Sierra Leone Correctional Services is making frantic efforts to ensure that they put them in a way that will make them become productive members of society. But that will be an individual decision. That will be an individual choice. If you are given the requisite training, the requisite teachings to come back to society and become productive, and you decide to do otherwise, then that is a different ballgame altogether. But I continue to appeal that we will be able to succeed in eliminating these kinds of people or isolating them by providing the requisite information. Like I stated, these boys who committed the heinous offenses in Bo and in Kenema might not even be residents of Bo. They came from somewhere, but before they got onto Bo or to Kenema, somebody on ground might have coordinated their activities.
This speaks volumes of the quantity, the caliber of security presence we have. That's a good point you raised. If you, in fact, from even within Freetown, when it's dark, you see checkpoints every distance you get to. There are checkpoints. Even moving from Freetown to upcountry, there are checkpoints you would have to cross. And these crimes occur not in daytime. What we've seen, it happens during the night. It speaks volumes of what's the quality of checks that are provided at these security checkpoints that people pass through with all these weapons in their custody.
So that will mean is the thinking that prior to their commission of the offense, they moved with all of these things at one go. Sometimes it's not like that. Criminals are criminals. They are sometimes very, very crafty in the way they do their things. ASCP just mentioned that some of the implements caught up with them are locally made implements, especially the shotguns. They could be manufactured in the very community where they are committing these offenses. Or they could travel with them in piecemeal in different parts in a way that it will almost be impossible, even with the most sophisticated machinery, to determine that one. And so they go to communities aided by other rogue elements who are stationed in those communities, and then they perpetrate their activities. The checkpoints are meant to ensure that those people who want to travel safely are aided to do so without any problems whatsoever. It is not actually meant to begin to put people under fear, to begin to put people under kinds of tensions.
We'll look at community policing and the role of the community in solving some of these crimes. But let's talk about the checkpoints. I'll come to you again, ACP Brima. What is the purpose of those checkpoints? What are they supposed to be doing, those who mount the checkpoints?
Yeah, from the name itself implies that they are there to check for, well, one, contraband goods, the movement of people. Sometimes we have people who move from point A to point B, and if they are suspicious, you pick them up. If they are moving with goods, they are not supposed to move it, you pick them up as well. So that's the purpose.
How do you know all of these things?
Well, it depends on the training you have. If training is provided for, say for example, to detect drugs, and then we detect them like we have been doing, especially we have the Falas checkpoint and other checkpoints where we've been.
So how do they detect them at these checkpoints? Because, you know, at these checkpoints,
Yeah.
there are no security dogs, you know, like you would have at the airports, those trained dogs who can perceive drugs from afar and sniff it up and just pick it out. They don't have those. We don't see them with any scanning devices to check. So my assumption is they would use their human eyes, search the vehicles, search the luggage in the vehicles, but unfortunately what obtains is we see these checkpoints to perhaps, as you said, as the name obtains, checkpoints to check. Maybe we need to change the names from checkpoints to cash collection points, because what they do is they stop vehicles, whether private or commercial, and it's just we want lights for the one battery for the light, or one drink tea or play school. That's what these checkpoints are doing now. That's the reality.
No, it could
they
not,
make it into a money collection point rather than a checkpoint.
It could not be exclusively for that purpose. Otherwise, we would not have been arresting people.
So this is the theory versus the practical.
So
You're speaking on the theory of how it ought to be.
No, what I'm saying...
I'm telling you the reality of what obtains.
Yes, you are telling
me
the reality of what you've seen. That could be true. I'm not contesting that one. This is why we always say, if you are out there as a member of the public, you see things which are not right, bring them to our attention, bring them to our notice. I'm in the office, I'm asking Tom. Right?
Isn't the police aware of these, that there are some police personnel, many of them sadly so, at those checkpoints, they just do face check and greetings and expect a cash transaction?
Those ones we lay hands on, we normally treat them the way we should treat them. Take them through the processes of see their ID, if they should be dismissed. And most times when we dismiss them, we let the public know. And some we've sent to Pademba Road, we've also let the public know. So those ones who cross the line, we've been doing the needful. But the checkpoints are not there for that specific purpose. There are checkpoints where they collect money. And sometimes people think they are police checkpoints. Like we have NRA checkpoints in some areas where they check whether you've gone through the NRA processes. And then we also have checkpoint for this agricultural stuff. You know, so these are all checkpoints. Sometimes people just think all the checkpoints are police checkpoints. Not all the checkpoints are police checkpoints. But
are police
greater number of
officers
checkpoints.
Supposed to wear uniforms at the checkpoints, whether it's daytime or nighttime?
They are supposed to wear uniform, but some do not wear uniform.
Are they supposed to do that, not wearing uniform?
Yes, some are not attached to uniform offices, so they do not wear uniform.
So because again, these are security concerns.
Yeah.
Some of these checkpoints, as you've pointed, are not mounted by police officers. Though some of the examples you've mentioned are state institutions, but in some instances, there are people who drive and they tell you, especially at night, they're not even confident to stop because they can't tell which is a police checkpoint and which isn't. Is it right for an individual to stand on the streets mounting a checkpoint without a police uniform and expecting drivers to brake and honor the respect, give upon them the respect due to a police officer when they're not in uniform?
It all depends. Say, for example, we have these Okada guys. They have their own system. They have their way of operations. And what we normally do, we just allow them to operate. And but they operate for their own Okadas.
The Sierra Leone police, the police personnel deployed. I'm asking you this because not too long ago, I witnessed a situation where at the Bo checkpoint, the main Bo checkpoint to get into Bo,
checkpoint, yeah.
There was a policeman, he says he's a policeman, he was wearing uniform. He wasn't wearing uniform, he was in clothes. He was stopping people. Some of the drivers refused to stop. And then he stopped another vehicle and we were there and I said, how can we stop when you're not even wearing uniform? How would we know we were stopped by an officer of the law and not because, you know, for many different personalities in the country, people just stop you. All man, they send shout out, Odi Mami, Odi Pa. How do you know this is an officer who wants to do his work when the officer is not wearing uniform?
Well, in future, if that one happens, all I can advise you, you can ask for his ID card.
But
His
then you would
card.
need to stop
Yeah, you
to
have to
see ID card.
But that was
How
already-
do you make the decision now to say, okay, that's an officer, let me respect the officer and stop, when the person is not wearing
No,
a
but you
uniform?
specifically referred to a checkpoint, and that checkpoint you already know is a police checkpoint.
But
So
the
if somebody
checkpoint
stops,
is not always full of police people. You know,
That
at
part-
these checkpoints, especially up country,
That
there are
particular
people
checkpoint.
selling items, there are people who are coming just to give you shout outs, and there are many different people at the checkpoints.
yeah, but that particular checkpoint we are referring to is a police checkpoint. So if somebody comes over to you to say stop, and then the person is not in uniform, ask for his ID card, his identity card.
So it's okay for the police people not to be wearing uniforms at the checkpoints?
It is okay for them not to wear uniform if they are not posted to a branch where they should wear uniform.
So if they're
We
not
have
posted
branches
to a
within the-
branch where they should
we
wear
have branches
uniform,
within
why
the
are they
police.
working in that branch
Yeah,
on the street?
They are there for some specific purposes. These are not things we cannot lay bare on the table, but they are there for specific purposes. But they are police officers. They are not supposed to put on uniform.
Okay.
We have the FSU, sometimes we have the CID, we have the intelligence branch. They
Are
are all
FSU people
there.
now traffic people? Should they be on traffic?
Ooh.
You're saying sometimes they're posted for different things. FSU, are they now traffic people?
No,
Do you come from other divisions?
No,
and-
being at the checkpoint doesn't necessarily mean you are performing traffic duties like you are controlling traffic.
So any
from
officer
point
can be at the
But you can be
checkpoint.
there. You can be there for a specific purpose. And say, for example, we've got information that somebody's been trafficked. So you can get the FSU man to be there who knows about trafficking. You can get him at that time to be there to perform a police duty.
Okay.
It might not be in uniform, but he's performing a police duty.
That has been clarified on
Yeah.
they can wear uniform and all. Let's come back to the quality of search that is conducted at the checkpoints. Will this actually leave the checkpoints and the people who rely on the service that the checkpoints provide, the security service, it leaves people vulnerable? Because especially in the aspect of kush, we know that maybe for lack of the right way to put it, the drug lords, when it comes to kush in Sierra Leone, are not poor people. Many of them have expensive cars, and these are exactly the kinds of people who come to the checkpoints and they don't go through a search. What the officers do is just to send greetings to them, and there's a cash transaction going on. They don't care to check what's in the vehicle, even in the wake of the kush pandemic in the country. They don't even care to say, let's check. When you pass these checkpoints, you see the people come, they say hello to them, they ask them nicely, some very directly about money, they give them money, and they go without even searching. This makes the security aspect of the checkpoints useless.
If you go back to the records of arrests that have been made in those checkpoints, you will agree with me that the presence of those checkpoints is one that should be commended. Yes, there could be situations where some people will just want to beat the system, beat the law. Sometimes it becomes even challenging for those police officers or law enforcement agencies that will insist on checking on every vehicle. The same public will come again to say, you are delaying us, you are doing this and that kind of a thing. I stated earlier that we thrive best where we have information and intelligence.
Oh.
Some of the arrests that are being made are not actually on account of what obtains at the checkpoint. You come to the checkpoint, you already have information on you, and we go after you on account of this. Again, let me also use this opportunity to appeal to members of the public, irrespective of your status. If you come to a checkpoint and police officers want to search, allow them to do their job. Don't ostracize them. Don't begin to say they are wasting your time and that kind of a thing. Because it is these kinds of attitudes that will sometimes lead to the escape of the actual people that we are looking for. Most often, if we begin now to pinpoint on checking on every vehicle at a particular point, it will mean that we've gotten some information, some intelligence. So we expect the public to understand that kind of a situation. It's a challenging thing, we must concede, but over the period, the number of arrests that we've made in all of the checkpoints, whether at the airport, whether at the seaport, or even the land borders, from Galamwea to Jendema to Bo, to even the airport, all of those are as a result of the commitment of the personnel that are deployed there. There could be challenges, and these challenges are not insular to Sierra Leone, because the rogue element will do everything within his powers or her powers to beat the system. I mean, they sometimes are influential. They have money. They know the people. They know the structures. And all they will do is to beat the structures. So we expect that information that will lead us to better what we are doing in all of those checkpoints will be provided, because this will be, I mean, management information for those people that will be reviewing the structures, that will be reviewing the functions, to bring this to their attention. Because even when checkpoints are created, sometimes checkpoints are gazetted, others could be snap checkpoints to deal with particular situations and that kind of a thing. It is expected that the public has to cooperate to those kinds of activities. ACP mentioned that there could be different category of security personnel at the checkpoints. But at every given point, if it's a gazetted checkpoint, you will expect to have at least a uniformed police officer that will aid the others, especially for the public. Sometimes the public will be suspicious that you are in Mufti. I don't know you, I'm not too comfortable because I don't know whether you are a police officer or not. And for Fala checkpoints, it's a big checkpoint, it's a gazetted checkpoint. So you will expect that there has to be that kind of a blend. But these kinds of information are ones that we will need to provide when we do our reviews in terms of the functions, in terms of upgrading on our activities. That's what I wanted to say.
ECP, back to the kush, discussion. How many of these peddlers have you actually arrested in Sierra Leone? It almost seems as though we've lost the fight against kush. A lot of these young guys are dying. If you see the wounds, they are very traumatic wounds. These are very, very difficult situations. I understand why it was the vice president who was leading the charge, but we've not had much about the actual people who are at the top of the chain who sell these things.
Well, I don't know if you know that.
Oh, there are rumors around. The last time the Sierra Leone police had to announce that they were going to raid a particular house. A lot of people criticized that by
allegations, they could be quickly made, but proving them sometimes is also difficult. Okay. And based on the laws we have in Sierra Leone, we are operating on the British law. If you are saying somebody does something, it becomes a responsibility to prove that he did A, B, and C. So sometimes this is why, as provided for by Section 23, subsection 4 of our Constitution, that every man is presumed to be innocent. So even where you meet somebody committing an offense, you are arresting for that offense. By law, he is still presumed to be innocent until that person is found guilty by a competent, not only a court, some court could be kangaroo court, by a competent court of law. So this is why we are very careful when we make allegations, but we've been doing our level best, and those ones we've come in contact with, we've arrested them, and they are one in jail, some attending to their cases in court. So we just have to be careful. I say, hey, this man is a criminal. We don't just call him criminal, but we are doing our level best to make sure that we continue to fight the menace you alluded to. That's the kush menace. And those guys you talk about, you see the saws and all the rest of it. That tells you, even though we are doing our best, some people are still indulged in the old habit, and that's a very difficult one. But we will not rest on our oars. We have a job to do. We'll continue to pursue them. At some point, let's be very clear. At some point, we are considering them to be on the other side. But again, public outcry, and then we are humans. We cannot consider, we said, no, let's consider them to be victims. So instead of arresting them, taking them to Panema Road, it doesn't make sense. It makes no sense. Take them to Panimba Road. So you are just like worsening the situation. So we now decided that let's consider them to be victims, and let's go after those who are involved in the chain. Whether they are the ones who are manufacturing, they are the ones who are distributing, they are the ones who are doing the wholesale, and those are the ones we've been going after, and those ones we've been able to catch. We caught them.
A while ago, the head of ONS was here on this very set, and he confirmed with us that morning that Sierra Leone is very porous. Hundreds of porous entries into Sierra Leone, both on land and on sea. And he also said that having the personnel to man all of these places was quite difficult. Is that true in any way? And could that be a contributing factor why we would not be able to make much gains in the fight against kush?
When journalists ask questions, you have to be very smart. You ask the first question, and then there was another guide to it. So you have to be careful. So it means you pose two questions, 2 in 1. Firstly, yes, I can confirm that Sierra Leone is very porous. I can also confirm, for now, that we do not have the required personnel to man all those areas. But whether your last link, whether you can now link it to what happened, it's going to be another aspect of our study. This is why the Office of National Security, they are here. They play that coordinating role. Where there are gaps, I think they have the RAD. Is it the Research and Development Unit within? That's their job. They will now do the research and then see how they can fix in those areas we have loopholes. But honestly, Sierra Leone is porous. I think we have over 300.
Yeah, over 800.
Over 800. So you actually do not have the personnel to man all those areas. Wow. So, but that's the reality. That's the reality.
In the case of these 2 lesbians, how far? What has happened to them? I mean, a while ago, 2 lesbians, supposedly female people, who were getting married at what?
Oh, okay, that's that's same sex.
Yes, yes. How far with their case?
We still have them in our custody.
Okay.
Firstly, let's lay the basis. Today, September 16, we are ushering the new Criminal Procedure Act.
Yes.
Today,
yes.
As I'm seated here, I'm sure they are doing the ceremony after the High Court opening, and they are going to do the formal ceremony. As provided for by the new Act, Section 15, D. See, if you are suspected of committing a crime or being about to commit a crime, you could be arrested. So the arrest itself, reasonably, we suspected that they were committing, reasonably, we suspected that they were committing the crime, so they were arrested. So that one is just justifiable. Again, with regards to detention, if you also read Section 17, subsection 1F of our Constitution, it says if you are reasonably suspected of committing a crime or being about to commit a crime, you could be detained as well. You understand? So, but for now, we have to look at the law and see whether what they did is criminalized. And this is why we have the Law Officers Department. We can do our investigations, but one key aspect to it is that we also have to look at their personal safety. For anything that is frowned at community level, you have to be. Well, this one is not even community level. This is the whole country, and this one was like publicized, so everybody is almost aware of it now. You go on social media, it's all there. So we also have to look at their personal safety. Yeah, we have to look at their personal safety as well.
Is that the case why they are still in custody?
That is an additional reason for which they are there. So we are looking whether they committed an offense, of which Law Officers Department, they have that onus to tell us whether an offense was committed. You understand? Because in Sierra Leone we have Cap 95, we have Cap 96, we have Cap 97. All those ones they talk about marriage, and we even have this one of 2007, the Distribution of Marriage and Divorce Act of 2007. So all those ones, they provided definition for marriage. So, but it's not my responsibility to determine. I don't have that power to determine whether an offense was committed or no offense was committed. But for now, we have them in our custody. We are looking into the issues surrounding that marriage, and like I said, one aspect of it, their personal safety is very key to us as well, because we are responsible for the protection of life and property. Say, for example, we let them go out and then something happens, people will come back and say They were with the police. Why did the police leave? Now look at what had happened. So we are taking our time to make sure that we are not caught in the web. So that's the current situation, but we have them in our custody.
Okay. A while ago, a 21-year-old girl burnt down the house of the aunt.
Eh?
An arsonist, the 21-year-old girl who burnt down her auntie's house. What has happened with her and her case generally?
That could also be another specific issue. And if I do not have all the facts with me, I cannot prove anything, especially when I'm on air. It's very specific. Maybe I have to go back and
check it.
Check, yeah.
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
But let's come back to the broader security, general security aspect in the country. With armed robbery reports here and there, and now murder, it leaves fear with some residents, whether citizens or even foreigners residing in the country. It brings about some amount of fear for the public. What's the assurance of security in the country?
You know, honestly, in security terms, we normally use the word relatively. I have to assure the public that we are relatively safe, we are relatively peaceful. Otherwise, me seated there wouldn't have been here. And even my brother there, I don't want to say my sister, but and I'm not sure whether we would have been here if Sierra Leone was not peaceful. There could be incidents here and there could be criminality here and there, but that notwithstanding, we are doing our level best to ensure that we keep the people safe. You know, it's a difficult job to do, but whilst people are sleeping, we're out there, we do not have holidays, some people go on leave, we do not go on leave. It's a difficult one, but that's what we are paid for. If not, you can choose to do another job. I would have gone somewhere else to do something else. I equally have qualifications to work somewhere else, but I chose to be within the police service, so which means I have to give up my best, serve the state, and then when my time is done, and then I move out. But I want to assure members of the public that in spite of the fact that things are happening here and there, we are still on top of our game and will continue to provide the requisite security that will guarantee their safety.
Earlier on, you wanted to delve into community policing and, you know, role that the communities can play. What is it that community people can do to support the security sector in the country for the good of all?
Several things. First, to pay attention to personal security. I mean, the police will provide general security. It is not the police that will go close your door or your windows. It's not the police that will check that one. Maybe these platforms will provide us the opportunity of informing the public that, especially in the rains or festive seasons, you have to be mindful of your personal effects, of your household, of what you have in the house. And even people that troop in and out of your house, you have to be very nosy about everything that happens around you. Beyond that one, you have to also ensure that you pay attention to what is happening in your community. And don't say it is not your business because you are not directly impacted. It could begin with some other person. Maybe it could end up with you. Bring it to the attention of the relevant authorities, the immediate authorities in your vicinity. It could be the police. Where the police is not present, there are local authorities. Bring it to their attention. I mean, there are toll-free lines. There are channels where you can bring your complaints. The police has always announced the 900 toll-free line. The National Situation Room runs on 119. If you think you want to report without being identified, you can do so using these kinds of means. Beyond that, report criminality. Report criminals, even if they are your relatives. Because if they are causing havoc onto other people and you harbor them, they might also tend to come after you. And if society, generally, your community becomes, inundated with criminality, you yourself will not be safe. So we expect exchange of information. We feed on information and intelligence, whilst we have our sources, our officers all over the place to collect information for us, our intelligence, and provide that for the good of the citizenry. We also expect that the citizens should play their own part. Also, there have been situations when police will actually have positive information and want to take action in the interest of the public. Some members of the public whose interest is being sought for will come to deter the functions of the police. That is not patriotic at all. So let us be nosy about what obtains around us. Let us pay attention. These things that are happening in Sierra Leone are not unique to Sierra Leone. Whilst we may not want to compare security situations elsewhere, but I will state that a crime index report across the Mano River Union, the ECOWAS region, Africa and the world at large, Sierra Leone remains one of the most peaceful countries in the world. And for us to maintain that one or to even go beyond that one, it will mean we all have to put hands on deck to ensure that we support law enforcement agencies in ensuring that we have a peaceful community, because we are aware that development will only thrive where there is peace. Without peace, without serenity in our societies, it will be difficult for development to take place. Even where it has taken place, this one will be short-lived. So we appeal to members of the public that we have a responsibility. That is the reason that in the current security practice, everybody is brought on board. From the national level onto the local level. From national, Freetown, we have the National Security Council. We have, at the provinces, we have the provincial, the district, the chiefdom security committees. All of these are conduits where you have security personnel in uniform sitting together with civilians discussing the ordinary security concerns of that community. This is unique. This is very unique. In the past, it was not like this. So it means it is not people-centered security. Say, for example, the chiefdom, where we have chiefdom security committees. The police commander in that chiefdom will be seated with the paramount chief, who is chairperson of that committee, and they'll be discussing security at their level, how to proffer, solutions onto their common problems. So you have a channel, you have an opportunity. If you're a bike rider, if you're a motorist, you are doing A, B, and C. The IGP stated that, and I quote him, if you see something, say If you see something suspicious and which you are not satisfied about, bring it to the attention of the immediate authority within your vicinity. And we always keep our informants anonymous. We don't announce them to the public. That is why all of these lines you call, you don't need to introduce yourself. Just tell us the area where these kinds of things are happening. They'll be there to support you. On border security, I mean, borders are created not by physical barriers. Borders actually should be created in the minds of people. If, for example, I know that going to Guinea, for example, a neighboring country, I require to pass through this particular route. If I now go bypass that route and do something else, then I'm in breach of security. The reason for the creation of borders is to just ensure that there is demarcation. None, I'm not aware of any country in the world that has faced its entire border landscape. It's almost impossible. It's almost impossible. But what should be noted is that as long as what you are engaged in is nothing criminal, there is no need for you to begin to bypass the required structures for you to go from point A to point B. We have borders are classified into classes A, B, and C. Class A borders are those that are manned 24/7. All of the apparatuses are present. Class C are less manned. Class B are less manned. Class B could even be footpaths. Say go between us and Guinea, between us and Liberia. There are a lot of footpaths where people do daily activities. For those kinds of places, the culture, the intermarriages, the trade relations among those people will not even make it prudent to have barriers among them, because you'll only be separating families, you'll be separating people. But what is important, that even if it's a footpath, even if it's an air route or a sea path, you have to do things that are within the provisions of the law, because every country thrives best when the laws are followed to the letter.
Lastly for me, Abdul, we're rounding off. Is there any sort of update on this Yenga stuff? I mean, after the high-power delegation had been stopped from entering that place, I mean, last time you were here and we were discussing it.
Yes, one recent development and maybe some clarifications around the issue of the ECOWAS delegation not putting foot on Yenga town. I start with the very last one. When the ECOWAS 10-man mission, the 12-man mission came to Sierra Leone, they announced that they were also going to engage our counterpart in Guinea. But they wanted to start with us because Guinea is expecting to have a referendum on their yes votes kind of a thing. And so they had asked for some time to be given to them. And so the ECOWAS team moved to Sierra Leone, had engagements with all of the relevant stakeholders, and they now moved on to the community to do an on-site visit and assessment. Prior to their going, they had actually requested from our personnel, our military deployment there, on the possibility of them also visiting the counterpart military deployment at Yenga town. And so the commander, rightly so, contacted his counterpart in Nongoa. Nongoa is the bigger town immediately after Yenga, after the Makona River. He asked that we gave him some time for him to reach out to Conakry. He came back to us thereafter to say, unfortunately, he has not been given the authority by his, by his superiors to allow the team to come. Because as far as they were concerned, when the ECOWAS 10-man delegation came to Sierra Leone, they started with the national and then faded on to Yenga. And so they will also want to have that same kinds of patterns, starting from Conakry, Wekedu, and then on to Yenga on the ground itself. So that was understood. But the mission itself was very successful because they spoke to all of the relevant players. They got all of the document that they required from us. The National Security Coordinator provided that for them. After all of the global explanations, the Minister for Internal Affairs, the Honorable Mori Lenga Esquire, led the delegation. I was also part of that delegation. But during the course of the visit, we interfaced with the displaced persons, the people that were actually residing on Yenga soil, in Yenga town. They had a lot of concern that they brought to our attention. We came back and reported to the authorities. On Saturday, 2 or 3 days ago, the Chief Minister led a delegation of ministers, members of parliament, and some development partners to Yenga, to Kwedu, to listen to the cries of the people in terms of their immediate needs, future development prospects, and what could be done so that once we resolve Yenga, we'll not have this back and forth that we've been having for over 2 decades. So that's the recent development. Okay. The ECOWAS team that came did promise that they were going to compile their report on our side and proffer recommendations based on what they've heard from the various people they spoke with. And then we'll submit for the attention of the heads of authorities of ECOWAS. Thankfully, we have the president of Sierra Leone, our president, as the chairperson of the ECOWAS heads of authority.
ACP, any final comments? Any final comments from you about security, commitment of the Sierra Leone police?
I mean, just to bank on what he initially said, that we continue to ask on members of the public to support the police at all times, or the security sector generally. We cannot be everywhere at the same time. There is no way. But they are community members. They are within their communities. When they suspect anything, or they suspect, like I said, sometimes you don't wake up in the morning and you just see a madman, and then you begin to say, this is a madman. Or sometimes some people, they're not mad, but they're there to source information. So I'm not saying you should beat that madman, but you have to be suspicious. Watch the movement. Maybe at night, they take off these rags and then go and do things which are not right. So pay attention to your communities and be your border's keeper.
Just before we round off, today we as a country adopt the Criminal Procedure Act of 2024. There are several provisions in that, several things that obviously tie to especially the Sierra Leone police. How in tune is the Sierra Leone police to the new act we're using starting today?
Yeah, well, this is why we've been in touch with the Law Officers Department and equally to the judiciary. We've had 2 trainings. We had His Lordship, Nicolas Brandmark, retired, and he was with us, and then it took us to, some of us are fortunate. I even took exams on that one, 2 or 3 exams, as the case may be. So I was tuition, and I know what is there, and we've been engaging the IGP, we've been engaging authorities, let them know what is there, especially on the issue of trial by ambush. And trial by ambush is no longer going to be applicable. It means if there is a file, and then you want to take that file to court, you have to photocopy the file and give to the other party, so they know what you are going to present against them, and they now know how to defend themselves. So a lot of things are involved. And I, even before coming, I spoke with the IGP on that issue. So we do our level best to make sure that we align our operations, we align our investigations with the new Criminal Procedure Act. If we don't do it, then we are in default.
The police itself would tell you ignorance of the law is no excuse.
No, there is no ignorance. It's not necessary to start coming here.
That's the premise. The police would say ignorance of the law is no excuse.
Yeah.
But sometimes what you find is, even from individuals like yourself who sort of speak on behalf of the Sierra Leone police, sometimes the engagement you have in public via the media, some of your colleague officers are not even in tune with that information.
True.
So again, it comes back to ignorance of the law is not an excuse. The public is expecting now that the Sierra Leone police, in its entirety, every officer who works within that institution should have been briefed on the Criminal Procedure Act of 2024. So everything they do should reflect the new act. Not a situation where the act is one, you go to a police station, you're having confrontations with police officers who will tell you they don't even know, they're not aware, which is often the case in the country.
Yeah, we'll do our best to bring them to speed with the situation that subsists. We'll do our best. It's difficult, but we'll do our best. But the investigators, we've targeted the investigators, and then we've also targeted the prosecutors, because for them they have specific responsibility provided under the new 2024 Act. So those ones, we targeted them, and then we had trainings for them, and then we'll now have to roll it out for the general and police officers. But we'll do that.
Lastly for you, Will, part of the Criminal Procedure Act of 2024, it's also looking at witness protection. Yesterday we had in the studio Koji, the coordinator from the justice sector, and he said that they have been working with all the MDAs and relevant institutions that work in that sector. The question now that has not been answered is, first of all, administrative adjustments. We just touched briefly on that with the Sierra Leone police, getting the rest of the members in tune with what the Act provides. But in this area, infrastructural complementing facility, those who would come starting today that we've adopted it, who would require witness protection, what's the infrastructure for them? For some people, especially whose witness protection need to escalate to a point of even changing their address, providing a safe home for them, what's the infrastructural complementary package to adopt the new Act?
So it's nascent in the sense that it has been reviewed comprehensively. Of course, after the review, it means a lot of new things have been brought on board, for which there has to be some complementary infrastructure. The engagements will continue, where we need XYZ infrastructure in terms of enhancing witness protection, because it's not new. Those infrastructure will be made available. Even for training, most of the trainings that are being conducted now are training of trainers. But this one could be cascaded. I mean, within the security sector, we have platforms where you can just drop one thing and the rest of mankind will be able to catch up with that. Whether it's the awareness, whether it's the correctional services, the National Fire Force, or the Sierra Leone Police. Of course, for the Sierra Leone Police, there is a whole training school for that. The same for the military, and the awareness, and all of us have common platforms where, even if you are not directly being put into a classroom to be taught A, B, and C, there are opportunities for you to still understand what obtains within the sector. We communicate not only internally, not only externally for the attention of the public, we also go back to our authorities or even our colleagues to communicate those kinds of information for which the public has concerns over. So for infrastructure, I'm sure the judiciary, which is the institution that will actually be dealing with these kinds of issues, will be able to put those infrastructure in place to ensure that the witnesses are protected. Because it's important, if witnesses feel threatened or feel insecure when giving support onto the judiciary, it will make prosecutions very difficult because you don't have them to cooperate with the process. So those structures that are meant to protect them will be ones that will be given priority to.
We'll continue to delve into this because there's still no clarity on who takes what portion of the responsibility in the implementation of the act itself in its entirety. But ACP Brima, Maria Brando is asking on Facebook, please ask the police about the retirement of the Police Inspector General on the 26th September 2025.
Well, he's aware. I'm not aware. So he's aware. I'm not aware. So I cannot profile anything about it. I have not been told about it, so I'm not aware of it.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being part of the program this morning.
Thank you too for having us.